Good morning, guys. Welcome back to my garden. My name is Kiera. Feel free to call me Q if you're new here. Today is all about cleanup. We have a bunch of different projects to do here. You can see just behind me, I have noodle beans that are in various stages of done. I might save some seeds from these. You can see over here I have cucumbers that are super old. So we have a lot of plants that just need to be taken out. And then we also have a lot of things like peppers that we're going to leave in the ground, and we want to kind of just give them more space to finish out the season. So we have 6 beds that are 4 by 16, and then we have 3 beds that are 4 by 8. And I cleaned out one the other day. I just spent, an hour before the sun went down out here and cleaned up one bed, and that felt really good, but it was one of the easier beds. So these other ones, I'm not sure how many I'm going to get to this morning, but we're going to kind of see how far we get. So I'd love to have you join me and just see what it looks like to clean up this massive garden. It is always a little sad for me to do this just because this was our summer garden. I mentioned in my last video, this was the garden that I made while I was pregnant and very sick and didn't know how much gardening I'd be able to do, but it definitely exceeded all of my expectations. And this is the garden that we brought our baby boy home to. So it's really sad to see a lot of it go. Some of it's still staying for a few more months, but yeah, it's always really sad for me to just tear out gardens. But I'm excited for what's coming next. I'm excited for fall. I'm excited for what we're going to grow over the winter months. It's going to be a lot easier. And then we're also going to do a lot of just our really deep cleanup of the garden and planning for next year over the fall and winter months. And that's always going to be just really great. So anyway, join me today as I clean up our garden. So this is the bed that I cleaned up the other night. It is looking a lot better than it did for sure. And I think what I'm going to do is skip over the flower bed in the middle here. And I think I'm going to start cleaning up this one down here. This bed has our noodle bean trellis on it, but it has a lot of other stuff down here, lots of grass in the beds, and I definitely want to take out the 2 squash plants that are in this bed. They're 2 yellow squashes. I want to take those out for sure, and that'll leave us with a lot of space to do other things. But you can see, like, we need to mow out here. There's gigantic squash in here, like that. That is huge. So we're gonna clean all this up right now. It felt really good to get out in the garden on this day and start working on cleaning everything up, especially since this was a bed that we can see from the house. And so every time I look out our living room window, I'm just staring at this bed that's overgrown, things are dying, it has just a ton of grass in it. So it felt really good to do this, and we're kind of figuring out our schedule now that we have a baby. And so a lot of this is, you get 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there. And Andrew and I switched off, so I was able to get an hour out here in the garden, which I really needed for myself. There's something just very therapeutic about cleaning things up and tidying it up. Here you can see that I'm just deadheading this marigold plant. It is super gone, but I want to see if I can get another flush of flowers on it and just kind of keep it going for a little bit longer. So I'm trimming that up here. I'm also deadheading the other flowers in this bed. So this zinnia, this is a Moulin Rouge zinnia. It's this really pretty red zinnia, and I love the way that this is grown kind of in between the arch trellises. It's just really beautiful right from the living room window. Now I'm starting to tackle this huge yellow squash plant. So you can see not only are these fruits massive, they kind of started to cross-pollinate with the zucchini, it looks like, at a certain point. So even when they were smaller, they were kind of turning green, which is really cool. And we ate some of them, but after a while we just kind of let everything go. Now this plant is massive. It goes all the way across on this 4-foot bed, and it goes actually into the walkway on both sides. And I have to kind of get some of this huge heavy fruit off of it first, especially since I'm trying to save some of the plants around it. So, you can see that marigold there that is struggle bussing and there's like pepper plants and stuff like that in there. So I had to kind of get some of that weight off of it first. The other thing too is I had to cut this up into sections. So Our loppers, I don't really know what you call them, but I always call them loppers. But they didn't actually go all the way through the stem of this plant. It's just really, really thick. And you can see here, I actually end up extending them, which is really handy. I really like that this tool has that feature. But I get in there with more leverage and just trying to cut the plant up into sections, taking some of the leaves off and stuff like that so that I can make it a little bit more manageable, because it was pretty hard to get out of there. And like I said, I was trying to save some other things too. I ended up going to actually the other side of the bed and pulling out some sections there just because there were some really heavy fruit laying in the walkway on that side. And so I ended up clipping off the heavy fruit on that side and trying to kind of tackle the plant from that direction, which worked really well to kind of get two sides of it off at once, or to be able to get different pieces of it off at once. Yeah, overall, I mean, you can see this plant is gigantic, and I was really happy with the amount of fruit that we got off of it, especially up until the point where the fruit kind of got cross-pollinated. It was the healthiest yellow squash plant we've ever had. So you can see there how big the hole is that this plant left, and I found that pepper plant underneath it. Here's the entire squash plant that I pulled out. So it's huge, and we got a lot of food off of that, which is great. So Andrew just told me that he found a bunch of pumpkins in the very large pumpkin plant that we have, but we haven't seen any pumpkins in it yet. So let's take a look. Okay, so this is one pumpkin plant from one pumpkin seed. This is massive. It goes all the way to that back fence, and it's actually growing through the fence into the neighbor's yard, and we've been trying to bring it back over, and then it goes all the way this way. It's a good, I want to say like 6 or 7 feet long this way, and then what would you say, is this like 15? Yeah. About 15 feet this way. So this is one gigantic plant. Okay, let's see what we found.
Okay, so there's this tiny female one over there that's not ready yet.
Okay.
That's not pollinated. There's one right there.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's one, I think this is the one we've seen before.
There's one there. Oh, okay. That one's getting to be a good size.
Yeah. And then,
it's just using this bush as a trellis.
Yeah. Where are the other ones? There's somewhere in this area.
Oh, here's one. Here's one right here.
Yeah.
Okay, this is great. We didn't think there was anything in here for this gigantic plant.
Oh yeah, there's one over there on the other side. Kind of see from an angle.
Where is it? There's the other one. Nice. Okay, I'm happy with that.
And I see some other like female buds here and there.
These are Howden pumpkins, so they're supposed to be like carving jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. Yeah, there's another one. Where is it? It's hard to find on camera. There it is, right there. So I don't know if we just saw this from a different angle, but there's another one right there. And this is our other pumpkin patch. So we have some sugar pies. There's one there in the grass in here. And then right here, there is a sugar pie and the big one is a Howden. So I'm kind of thinking maybe we should pull those right now. They look pretty good. Okay, so now this yellow squash is gone. All underneath it, it looks like grass, but that's actually sweet alyssum. And I don't like how this looks, so I think I'm just gonna clean all of this up. And then the sweet alyssum has, for sure, dropped seeds in here, so it'll come back. I'm not worried about it, but I think I want this to just look tidier for right now. Next up, I'm just continuing to pull grass. So we just had the grass kind of get away from us this year. We actually did wood chip around these beds in the back this year, but the grass grew up through the wood chips, and you can see in the front of the bed too, the mowing just kind of got away from us, but most of this grass actually came and grew from behind these beds, and so I'm just cleaning this up. This is a thing that's really satisfying to me, is to pull up this grass, especially when, if you've ever pulled grass like this, it's awful. But I love when you're able to get kind of like the whole root out. I don't know, there's something very satisfying about it. But I do like how this cleans up, especially since some of this grass is so long. When I was able to pull parts of it out, it actually pulled out whole sections like that. This is sweet alyssum too. So just being able to kind of pull up whole sections like this is very satisfying for my brain to just be able to clean it up and have like a nice finish when it's done. Okay, so I've gotten to the end of this bed where there's just a ton and ton of grass. It's also getting pretty hot out here. So I think what I'm gonna do is take out this second squash plant that's on the end. I have another yellow squash at the end, and I think I might call it and come back maybe this evening and do the grass. Like I said, this is gonna be a multi day project just because all of these beds, especially in this side of the garden, need so much work. So this is going to take forever, but I'm working on it now. I feel good about all the progress that I've made even just in the last hour. So let me show you what I've done so far, what's left in this bed, and then the last little thing that I'm going to do. Okay, so in this bed, I got all of this cleaned up around here. I just trimmed all of the dead flowers off this marigold right here, cleaned up all the grass. I'll come out here and we'll weed whack all of this too. Cleaned up so that you can actually see these pepper plants now. And this is where that gigantic yellow squash, it was covering all of this, and then it was going into the full walkway on that side, and then it was starting to kind of creep over on this side too. So this was one yellow squash plant that was about 5 feet wide, and that's intense. I found this sad little pepper plant in the middle of that. There were, I'm sure, other pepper plants that I planted a little bit closer to it, and they're all gone. That's okay. And then I pulled out all of the sweet alyssum that I had as kind of like an undercarriage under there. And I do really like the way that the sweet alyssum looks early in the season when the flowers are small. And I wanted to test it out as kind of something that would stay in the beds as, you know, a habitat for ladybugs over the wintertime and stuff like that. But it just got really tall and I don't like how it looks at all. It looks like weeds and the grass was growing in it too. So I just pulled all of it out. That said, I think that there's a lot of seeds in the ground, and so we are probably going to get sweet alyssum growing here pretty quick. That plan to just kind of keep a cute little uh, ground cover didn't really work out. So we'll see what happens next. And then from here, I just trimmed all of the flowers off of this marigold. This one was also kind of like coming up at the roots. And so I buried it a little bit more, but we'll see if this plant makes it. We have our jalapenos here, which we wait until they turn red and we pick them then. So we'll be getting those soon. And then this is where the grass just kind of, I pulled the grass out of this little area right here, but you can see there's still a ton of grass there, a ton of grass all in there. And then if you come around to this side, this is that second squash plant that I'm going to pull out really quick, but there's going to be a lot of grass that needs to come out too. So this plant was still really healthy. It didn't grow quite as big and prolific as the first one that we pulled out, but this one was also just one of the best yellow squash plants we've ever had. And getting in the grass over here, you can see it's really high over where I'm standing, and it's kind of scary. I probably should have worn long pants and, you know, rolled up socks and stuff like that. But Andrew has since mowed this down for me or weed whacked this down for me, so it's a lot easier to get in there now, and we're slowly cleaning it up. But yeah, you can see there's still really heavy fruit on this one also. For some reason, this one didn't cross pollinate quite as much as the other one, even though it is closer to a zucchini plant. So I'm not sure what was going on there. But this plant did really well also. And it kind of grew into two plants. So you can see all the smaller leaves on this side. This is actually the back of the plant too. So it kind of did an offshoot and grew a second plant. So while I'm in here, I also just pull out this zinnia. It wasn't doing too well and it was mostly done, so I just went ahead and pulled it out. Okay, so I lied. I'm gonna take out some of the grass in this corner. I sometimes do not know how to leave well enough alone. It's a feature, not a bug. So I'm just gonna put on a hat and at least clean up the grass in this little area because I want to feel good about how this looks once I'm done with it. So I'm not gonna do the whole bed because there's a whole section by a cattle panel over here that I still need to clean up all the grass there. And then there's grass in front of me too, but I can't leave this alone. So I'm gonna pull this up real fast. This is not going to be a, one time fixes it forever. There's still a lot of grass that just kind of broke off at the top, which this grass is really good for is breaking off right at the surface. So I'm going to keep having to kind of pull this grass out, but this gives us just a better starting point. The other thing too is all of this grass behind us. We had enough mulch last over the spring to do part of this, kind of like up to that satsuma tree that you see behind me or the clementine tree that you see behind me. But we didn't have enough to go all the way to the front of this bed. And so that's just kind of allowed the grass to just take over this entire area. So we do have plans to mulch this entire thing again, including mulching inside the pathways again. But it's just going to be kind of, multi-year process of us just slowly taking care of this. But I feel so much better about how this looks now. I think it looks really good. I'm so glad that I went ahead and just finished off that section underneath that last squash plant. Is very hot out here on this day, but I'm glad that I got that done because I can look at it and feel like I finished that part of the project, which was really nice. So thank you so much for joining me in my garden, and I will see you on the next one. Until then, happy gardening. Bye.